Now the story of the critically loved Arrested Development, and the one man who battled a network that didn't understand it, and an audience who refused to watch it. It was a shit show. Reality TV was running wild. It was a boon for broadcast networks. They were easier and cheaper to produce than all other types of primetime content. While these shows became more and more exploitative and just plain gross, director-producer Ron Howard saw inspiration for comedy. Not only was his film Ed TV prescient to the current status of television, then and now, but within the visual language of reality TV, he saw a style of filmmaking that needed to be explored.
So I thought that if you use this sort of docu-feel with, very naturalistic lighting and a couple of cameras handheld, and it was really loose, it would feel very spontaneous and could be dense, comedically dense, because you could do more visual humor, you could be more cinematic, you could have a narrator, you could do flashbacks.
He then held a meeting at his Imagine Television offices with a few executives and writers about this rough concept. In the room was TV veteran Mitch Hurwitz. Having spent the last 13 years writing and developing sitcoms, Hurwitz saw an opportunity. Much like one-hour dramas at the time, half-hour comedies had grown stale and were in need of evolution. Multi-camera setups limited locations, laugh tracks ate up precious seconds, stock characters were annoyingly predictable, performances played to the cheap seats, and networks stifled out-of-the-box thinking. Hurwitz himself admits to contributing to that problem. All the more reason to be the guy to change comedy. He threw out the idea of a riches to rags dysfunctional family that Howard loved. At the start of 2003, Hurwitz handed in his pilot script, Arrested Development, about a wealthy family, the Bluths, who lose everything when their patriarch is imprisoned. After a bidding war with NBC, Gail Berman of 20th Century Fox bought the series in hopes that it would get the network a runaway hit to rival Everybody Loves Raymond and Friends. Howard and Hurwitz started building their team. The actors were chosen for their improv skills, as the show would always present itself like a documentary. Berman questioned choosing Jason Bateman, as he was coming off a nearly 10-year run of failed pilots and canceled TV shows. But adding Jeffrey Tambor from HBO's award-winning The Larry Sanders Show was a bonus.
Hey now!
Hey.
That's a sentence.
Ron Howard enjoyed a short-lived, dark comedy called Lucky, whose pilot episode was directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. He contacted the two brothers about making Arrested.
Ron Howard articulated this to us very clearly, that the half-hour comedy needed to be saved, and that it was getting killed because it wasn't economical. Like, they were looking for somebody who could deliver something cinematically exciting, but at a budget. So that became our whole mandate.
With a lack of studio lighting, actors freely moving around, performances that were played straight, and a camera crew seemingly unaware of what was going on, Arrested felt like a contradiction to every other TV show ever produced. The Russos were developing a unique visual language that Gail Berman did not understand.
And we thought, let's apply this idea of verite so that it becomes our friend. We can hide behind this notion of, the sloppiness of found footage, and you can only go to the joke after it's told or while it's being told. The motivation has to come from the fact that the person is speaking.
This is the magic trick, huh?
Illusion, Michael.
Trick is something a whore does for money.
I remember the head of the network called us 2 days in, apoplectic, saying, what the are you guys doing? This footage is never going to cut together. And we were all like, trust us.
Berman even fought with David Cross over his idea of sporting a mustache.
A woman came in and said, Gail, the head of the network, she doesn't like mustaches on characters, and it's part of her 3 rules of comedy.
What were the 3 rules, you remember?
No, for men, no facial hair, no ball caps, and no puffy sleeves.
After a pointless back and forth, Cross lost the stash, played it about 75% as funny, then Berman let it go. Hurwitz then played his great trick. He knew the network would ask test audiences if they'd be interested in seeing another episode. So as a cheat, he threw in the "on the next" bit, teasing possible plot lines to get the pilot higher scores.
George Michael gets a new roommate.
Our numbers were off the chart. People did not like it, confusing, couldn't follow it. Would you like to see another one? Oh, definitely. She's in the shower, right?
But the real illusion was having Ron Howard himself be the narrator. Since the cast didn't have any true star power, Hurwitz knew that if he had Howard in the pilot, Fox and Berman would believe that Mr. Big-Time Movie Director was going to be more intimately involved, therefore making a more prestigious sitcom. Whether true or not, it worked. Arrested Development was given a full series order, and the series premiered on November 2nd, 2003. The sitcom revolution had been brewing for some time. Like the cringe-worthy realism of The Office, the manic energy of Scrubs, the no-hugging, no-learning mantra of Seinfeld, and the anything-goes attitude of South Park. Hurwitz wanted to combine all the best ideas. He hired a writing team of sitcom regulars, inspiring them to break every rule and note that networks ever gave them. Drawing from Larry Sanders and The Simpsons, Arrested wanted to prove that audiences could handle the unexpected. Everything from unredeemable characters or swearing on primetime.
I'm an uptight you old horny slut!
To breaking the fourth wall and seeding ideas that would take episodes to pay off.
Sometimes I thought a lot into the future, but that's a little bit of folly because you're never sure if you're going to have a future in TV. But I wanted something where it was like George Sr. was in prison, but he wasn't trying to get out for some reason, and the reason would be there would be some deeper crimes. So that is what became like they were building homes for Saddam Hussein. But I never had a plan to like where we were going to do that.
Hey, Linz, is it my imagination or does this rape room have the same floor plan as our kitchen?
These homes appear to be American built.
Who built them?
Does that look a little like our kitchen island?
Well, whoever it is, they're in a world of trouble.
I would say it kind of takes me to this idea of chance favors the well-prepared. I think Albert Schweitzer said that. And if you really apply yourself to anything completely, you will see benefits of it.
Their biggest asset was that Arrested would be the first major series to use HD cameras rather than traditional film. Since the beginning of television, reloading or jamming film cameras caused hours of downtime. Using digital HD, however, allowed the Arrested crew the freedom to shoot endlessly, letting ideas run their course, and especially giving them the ability to film cutaway gags, much like The Simpsons and Family Guy.
I think it looks frightening when it's cut off. It's a Doberman. Let it have its ears.
This immediately scared Fox as the budget would skyrocket. While easily achieved in animation, the cost and effort to get the cast and crew to find, set up, and film on location for a 5-second joke is what gives producers panic attacks. To save money, the cast were handed a clause stating production would forego fancy trailers and elaborate catering, and that no diva behavior would be tolerated. It wasn't uncommon for them to shoot 50 setups in one day. With the overwhelming amount of footage, rough cuts would come in over a half hour. Hurwitz was forced to get brutal with his editing to bring it down to the required 22 minutes. Nobody knocks, phones barely ring, lines are overlapped by the narrator, and excess gags were completely removed. Something Hurwitz hated. In his own words, he struggles with letting go of jokes. But he understood that none of it would work without a solid story foundation. So chunks of dialogue would be replaced in a sound booth, aka ADR, to maintain a sensible plot. And all those improv skills they wanted from the cast, something reviewers and fans felt gave the show its natural feel, it hardly existed. They had to dial it completely down so their edits wouldn't run long or ruin precise setups for the writers' jokes. Which was fine by the cast, as they preferred the scripted lines much more than anything they could come up with.
It goes to this idea of the more constraints you have in creativity, to me, sometimes the more creative you can be.
Ideas were thrown together on the fly. Jeffrey Tambor became a twin character simply because they saw him in a wig. When Will Arnett asked the writers if they could give his then-wife Amy Poehler an extra scene for the two of them, within an hour, they had written one and were off to film it at once.
I'm in love with your brother-in-law.
You're in love with your own brother? The one in the army?
No, your sister's husband.
Michael.
No, that's your sister's brother.
No, I'm my sister's brother. You're in love with me. Me.
This off-the-cuff style earned the series a remarkable reputation in the industry. Guest stars would spread the word that the show valued collaboration and that there was something truly radical happening on that set. Through this creative gauntlet came some of the most well-crafted television comedy ever. Reviews were unanimous. The freshman season was beyond funny, wholly original, uniquely cast, absurdly ingenious, and without a doubt the best sitcom in years. It was a series that respected the intelligence of its viewers. In an era of passive TV watching, Arrested was so full of Easter eggs, callbacks, call forwards, and densely intricate detail that would only be noticed on repeated watch-throughs. It's a wonder the show existed before streaming was a thing. The series demanded your attention, and because of that, it was alienating to those unwilling to put in the effort. It was a show about specificity for an audience used to simplicity. Arrested Development was ahead of its time, and that's why it was destined to fail. There were so many issues of its own making working against the series, including a lawsuit with hip-hop group Arrested Development over the title of the show that was settled out of court.
We are legally obligated to make the distinction.
But its biggest issue was the fact that it was on Fox. The fourth-rated network known for canceling series almost weeks after premiering. While under Gail Berman's command, Fox clearly favored their reality shows, like Hell's Kitchen and American Idol, or safe bet series like House and The OC.
Don't call it that, okay?
When originality was introduced, like canceled cult favorites Futurama, Firefly, and Andy Richter Controls the Universe, it was never given a chance to thrive. Berman was the hero who revived Family Guy for its third season, but threw it against CBS's Survivor and canceled it again. So when Arrested's promos promised their best new comedy in years, it rang hollow.
Hilarious. The smartest and sharpest comedy of this or last season. The funniest new comedy on the fall schedule. The question is not so much will it make you laugh, as how long will it make you laugh.
And that's how the show found an audience neither seen nor heard. It was all the more amazing that the staunchly safe Emmys surprisingly awarded Arrested Development with 5 wins, including Outstanding Editing, Hurwitz and the Russos' work on the pilot, and incredibly, Outstanding Comedy Series. An impressive feat for the 120th most watched show in America. The industry clearly loved Arrested, and Hurwitz thanked Gail Berman in his speech.
Gail Berman, who has just supported this thing ridiculously from the very start.
Hoping she'd ease off of them.
Her?
She didn't.
The day after we got the Emmy, I got called to the head of the network's office, and I walked across the lot sort of thinking, okay, be humble, don't say I told you so. And I got there, and she said, all right, this has to stop now, okay? This show has cost a lot of money. Now we're getting attention. You've got to stop making this arcane thing that nobody gets. And I still had my humble smile on my face. Yes, yes. Listen, thank you for, like, I couldn't even process that I don't get to be false humble.
Wow. Wow. That's what it feels like to get punched in the face.
Arrested's fate only got worse. Fox wasn't happy with this expensive failure, and only renewed it for a second season because of the incredible reviews, hoping it could build into the next Seinfeld, another show that broke sitcom conventions. The caveat being that Hurwitz needed to make the series more accessible, demanding easier to follow plots, bigger guest stars, and shameless product placement. Where Fox thought he'd play by their rules, Hurwitz saw it as rules to be played with. The guests were bizarre and unrecognizable.
Doesn't have to be good, just has to look good.
I just want my kids back.
The plots were directly in the title of the episodes, because it worked for Friends. And when they were forced to advertise a certain fast food restaurant...
Thanks for meeting me down there at Burger King. I'm trying to get them to underwrite a new TV project I'm working on. Get some money in exchange for setting a scene here in Burger King.
Well, as long as you don't draw attention to it.
They literally had Henry Winkler jump a shark.
And I've skipped breakfast, so I'm off to Burger King.
And even though the first season had cultivated a passionate fan base, albeit a very small one,
there are dozens of us. Dozens!
And no matter what show it followed, whether The Simpsons or Malcolm in the Middle, ratings continued to drop. This was largely because Fox barely marketed new episodes, another cost-saving measure.
I got an idea for what you can do. Why don't you fire your complete marketing team, all right? Get a new one in there, knows how to market a show that won 5 Emmys, Golden Globes, SAG Awards, WGA Awards, DGA Awards, Producers Guild Awards, Critics Top 10 lists. You know, if you can't market that kind of show and get better ratings, then maybe the problem doesn't lie here. Maybe it lies with marketing. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Then Fox reversed their decision for a 22-episode season. The writers were stunned to discover the contract that they were counting on was being cut back.
You initially told us to design and build 22 homes. Now you're saying 18. That doesn't give us enough capital to complete the job. I mean, we've already got the blueprints drawn up and everything.
Well, that part wasn't true, but they would have.
It was clear that Fox no longer wanted Arrested. When Gail Berman left Fox in 2005, she handed the decision of renewing Arrested to her successor, Peter Ligouri, who in turn didn't want to be the guy that canceled it. So he delayed the inevitable, ordered 13 episodes for season 3, then continually punted the air dates and time slots, essentially sabotaging any attempt at growing plant audience. Despite another Emmy under their belt,
we'd be remiss if we didn't point out the fact that the Academy has twice rewarded us for something that you people won't watch.
Their average viewers got even worse. When Hurwitz cast Charlize Theron, fresh off her Oscar win and a major get for the show, in a multi-episode arc, little press was made of it. Halfway through, Ligouri called Hurwitz, telling him the C word. Fox was canceling the series. Hoping to soften the blow, he said their reasoning was their full commitment to the upcoming Pamela Anderson bookstore comedy, Stacked.
After I relocated my shoulder, I took the bus home and drove straight here. That's horrible. You took the bus?
Oh, come on!
With 5 more episodes yet to write, the writers got real meta with their fate.
It's just hard to accept that it's really come to begging.
Sometimes it's the only way to stay in the game.
Please tell your friends about this show.
The silver lining was they were granted the rare opportunity of constructing a series finale. At the end, Hurwitz was putting in 7-day weeks, up until 5 a.m. each night, and the cast and crew's morale was at rock bottom. All this effort for a show Fox didn't like or promote. Even if they offered a 4th season, their relationship was beyond saving. If it were to survive, the only other option was to circumvent Fox and jump networks. A gamble that rarely pays off for TV series.
I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
Since Fox's owner and evil Sith Lord, Rupert Murdoch, called Arrested an HBO show mistakenly on Fox, it was assumed that maybe the cable network would buy the series. However, HBO was only in the business of originals.
Yeah, the HBO's not going to want us. What do we do now?
Well, I think it's Showtime.
Showtime, on the other hand, would have loved a critical darling like Arrested. They negotiated with Fox and Imagine TV to buy the series, guaranteeing 2 full seasons. Had Showtime proposed this a year earlier, Hurwitz would have been all,
Marry me.
Yet his only draw for persisting was for the fans. Personally, his heart was no longer in it. So utterly exhausted and never seeing his family, the experience had paid its toll, and no price could change that. We never had an expectation that this unusual, dense show that required an audience to really pay attention was going to be a hit show. It was instead a really meaningful, creative exercise that we all gave our lives to, and we always knew it was going to be a temporary endeavor. To Hurwitz, the story was done. He had given the show everything. He was creatively fulfilled, and the actors were ready to move on.
I feel like I've said this before, but this is the most talented, greatest group of people, and it's been really amazing working with everybody, so thanks.
For Showtime, without Hurwitz, there was no deal. In what would be Fox's final snub, the last 4 episodes were aired back-to-back against the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics, back when that was a big deal. Arrested Development quietly died on February 10th, 2006.
3 years ago, I made a choice to try to keep this family together, and today it looks like I really succeeded.
Perhaps 3 years was better than anyone could have hoped for. Hurwitz and his team created one of the single greatest television shows of all time. It was a brilliant sitcom that inspired a revolution in the genre. The docu-style aesthetic, the series' long-running gags, the live-action cutaways, the endless Easter eggs, the morally bankrupt lead characters, the subversion of overplayed tropes, the self-aware meta-ness, and the serialized storytelling in sitcoms. Whether influenced by, or straight up stolen from, Arrested Development was the stair car to better and deeper television comedy.
Beads.
Bees?
Beads.
Beads?
Nobody looks good in this.
Especially that little dude.
That's Anne.
I walk in and there's a colored man in my kitchen.
What color was he exactly?
Blue.
And I'm not afraid to make mistakes.
Or have you forgotten this little... Damn it!
This is ripe for parody.
He just wants to see boys' lionesses. Oh, God.
Bonus.
All things considered, Mitch Hurwitz was always game for bringing Arrested back as something else beyond a television show, like a special or
maybe a movie.
On the next, it was a shit show. We admit that Ghostbusters 2016 was terrible, and we are just brainwashed beta cucks.
Yeah, I can hang out with my uncles. I mean, 3 men, what's butcher than that?
I'm going to the mall.
Me too.
Yeah, maybe a new pair of shoes will cheer me up.
A podcast guest in the form of a familiar voice.
I'm in love with ice cream. I see. And how long have you had this sexual fantasy? Ooh, hadn't thought about it.
And Mitch Hurwitz discovers the pain of reviving his failed TV show.
Darkness, my old friend.
I've made a huge mistake.